The space station Valora was the biggest trading hub in that part of the galaxy. Ships from 100 different worlds came and went every day. The aliens who lived and worked there thought they had seen everything. They were wrong. The human ship, Starbound Horizon, came out of faster than light travel and requested permission to dock. The station controllers had never heard of humans before. They checked their records and found only a short note about Earth, a planet listed as World 7491C in the old surveys. The note said Earth was a death world. The gravity was too high. The weather was too violent. The animals were too dangerous. No intelligent species could ever evolve there. Yet here was a ship from that impossible world, asking to come aboard. Ambassador Corvith of the Volanti people was the first to greet the humans when they came through the airlock. He was tall and thin, with pale skin you could almost see through, and eyes that were too big for his face. His people had evolved on a quiet world with soft light and gentle seasons. He was not prepared for what he saw. Commander Lucy Shaw stepped onto the station first. She was not very tall by human standards, but she moved with a confidence that made Corvith step back without thinking. Her eyes scanned the crowd around her, taking in every detail, every possible threat. Behind her came 4 more humans, 2 men and 2 women, all of them moving the same way, like hunters, like predators. "Welcome to Station Valora," Corvith managed to say. His voice came out higher than he wanted. "We are honored by your visit." Lucy smiled at him. It was meant to be friendly, but Corvith saw too many teeth. "Thank you, Ambassador. We are happy to be here. My crew and I hope to learn much about your people and the other species of the Dominion." The other aliens in the docking area kept their distance. Word spread quickly through the station. The Deathworlders had arrived. Lucy's crew consisted of Danny Vance, who flew their ship, Pete Larson, who kept the engines running, Grace Kim, who served as their doctor, and Marcus Cole, who was in charge of security. They had trained together for 3 years before this mission. They trusted each other completely. The first day passed without incident. The humans were given quarters on the station and allowed to explore the public areas. Everywhere they went, aliens watched them with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Siri, a young Volanti scientist, followed them at a distance. She had studied death worlds in theory. She had written papers about how no intelligent life could evolve under such harsh conditions. Now she was watching 5 examples of the impossible walking around her station, eating food, making jokes, acting like normal people. It made no sense. The trouble started on the second day. A containment unit in the agricultural section broke open. Inside were razorwings, a type of flying insect from a quarantine world. They were about the size of a human hand, with wings that could cut through skin and venom that killed most species within minutes. The alarm went out across the station. Everyone was told to stay away from the agricultural section. Emergency teams would seal it off and pump out all the air to kill the swarm. This would take hours. The food growing in that section would be lost. Several workers who had not escaped in time would die. Marcus Cole heard the alarm and asked what was happening. When a station guard explained, Marcus looked at Danny. "How many bugs are we talking about?" Danny asked. "Perhaps 300, the guard said. "They will kill anyone who enters. Please, you must stay here where it is safe." Marcus and Danny looked at each other. Then they started walking toward the agricultural section. "Wait," the guard called after them. "You cannot go there. You will die." "We'll be fine," Marcus said over his shoulder. "We've dealt with worse." They found a maintenance room on the way and grabbed tools. Heavy wrenches, metal rods. Nothing fancy, but solid enough to hit things with. The agricultural section was a large dome filled with plants from many different worlds. The razor wings had spread out, buzzing through the air in small groups. 3 workers were hiding behind some equipment, too scared to move. "Stay down," Danny told them. "We'll handle this." The 2 humans moved into the dome. The Razorwings sensed them and attacked. What happened next was recorded by the station's security cameras. Later, that recording would be watched by millions of beings across the Dominion. Marcus and Danny stood back to back, swinging their tools at the insects that swarmed around them. They were stung dozens of times. Their skin turned red. Blood ran from cuts on their arms and faces. They did not stop. They did not slow down. They crushed one Razorwing after another, working with a calm efficiency that seemed impossible given the circumstances. 20 minutes later, the swarm was dead. Marcus and Danny walked out of the dome, covered in blood and insect remains, and asked where they could get cleaned up. The station's doctors could not believe the 2 men were still alive. The venom in their systems should have killed them 10 times over. Instead, their bodies were already fighting it off. Their wounds were already starting to heal. How is this possible? One doctor asked Grace Kim, who had come to check on her crewmates. Grace shrugged. "Human immune systems are pretty tough. We evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. Our bodies learned to adapt." Word of what happened spread across the station within hours. The Deathworlders had walked into a room full of creatures that should have killed them and walked out again. They had not even seemed particularly worried about it. Ambassador Corvith requested a private meeting with Commander Shaw that evening. His hand shook as he poured drinks for both of them. "Commander," he said, "I must tell you something. When we first saw your ship approaching, some members of the Dominion Council wanted to destroy it. They were afraid of what Deathworlders might do." Lucy took the drink but did not sip it yet. "What changed their minds?" "Nothing changed their minds. They were overruled by others who thought you might be useful." Corvith paused. "There is a war coming, Commander. The Dominion is losing. We have been losing for 40 years. And we are running out of time." Lucy set down her drink. "Tell me everything." That night, Lucy learned about the Vrekery. She learned about the planets they had conquered and the billions of beings they had killed. She learned about a galaxy that had given up hope, and she began to think about what humanity might be able to do about it. The briefing room was dark and warm, designed for species who did not like bright lights. Lucy and her crew sat around a curved table while Ambassador Corvith explained the threat that was coming for them all. A holographic map appeared in the center of the room. It showed hundreds of star systems. Many of them were marked in red. "The Vrekery were once a peaceful species," Corvith began. "They were artists and thinkers. They joined the Dominion 300 years ago and contributed much to our culture." He touched a control, and the display changed to show images of the Vrekery themselves. They were tall beings with long arms and large heads. In the older pictures, their eyes looked kind. In the newer pictures, those same eyes were cold and empty. 40 years ago, they developed a new technology, a way to enhance their brains. It made them much smarter, but it took away their ability to feel emotions. Corvith's voice dropped. They stopped caring about other beings. They began to see everyone else as either tools to be used or problems to be eliminated. Pete Larson looked at the tactical data scrolling beside the images. What kind of military power do they have? Their ships are faster and stronger than ours. Their soldiers feel no fear and never retreat. In every battle, they fight until they win or until every single one of them is dead. Corvith turned off the display. They have conquered 43 worlds. They will reach the heart of the Dominion within 5 years. When they do, everything will be lost. How many people? Grace asked quietly. If the Dominion falls, how many people die? 800 billion. Across 217 inhabited worlds. The number hung in the air. Lucy let it sink in before she spoke. What exactly do you want from us? Help us fight. Train our soldiers. Share your tactics and your technology. Stand beside us when the final battle comes. Corvith looked at her with his large, hopeful eyes. You are Deathworlders. You evolved to survive impossible conditions. Perhaps you can teach us how to do the same. Lucy called her crew together after the meeting. They gathered in their small quarters to discuss what they had learned. This isn't what we signed up for, Danny said. He was pacing back and forth in the limited space. We're explorers. We came here to make friends and learn about new cultures, not to fight a war. If we don't help them, the war will come to us eventually, Marcus replied. You saw those expansion maps. Earth is in their path. Maybe not for years, maybe not for decades, but eventually they will find us. Pete nodded. The technology data they shared is scary. The Vrikari have weapons based on principles we don't even understand yet. If we wait until they reach Earth to start preparing, we'll have no chance. So we help them to protect ourselves, Grace said. Is that the only reason? Lucy had been quiet, listening to her crew talk. Now she spoke up. It's part of the reason, but not all of it. She looked at each of them in turn. 800 billion people, children, families, entire civilizations that will be wiped out if the Vrikari win. These aliens never learned how to fight because they never had to. They're asking us for help because they have no one else to ask. She took a deep breath. I'm not going to order anyone to stay. If you want to take our ship back to Earth, I'll understand. But I'm staying here. One by one, her crew nodded their agreement. They were all in. The next morning, Lucy accepted Corvith's request. The humans would help the Dominion prepare for war. Training began immediately. Lucy worked with the Volanti soldiers first. They were eager to learn, but their bodies were fragile. Their bones were thin and light, designed for a world with weak gravity. Their reflexes were slow compared to humans. You can't beat the Vrikari in a straight fight, Lucy told them. They're stronger, and they don't feel pain the way you do. But strength isn't everything. You can outthink them. You can set traps. You can choose where and when to fight. She taught them about ambush and surprise attacks. She taught them to use the environment to their advantage. She taught them that sometimes running away was the smartest thing to do. Marcus took charge of physical training. He pushed the alien soldiers hard, making them exercise until their muscles burned and their lungs ached. Many gave up in the first week. Those who stayed grew stronger than they had ever been. Pete worked with the station's engineers. Humans had always been good at making weapons, and he had plenty of ideas to share. He showed them how to build kinetic weapons, guns that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. He showed them how to make explosives that could punch through Vrikari armor. Grace set up a medical training program. She taught alien doctors how to treat combat injuries, how to keep wounded soldiers alive long enough to get proper treatment. Many of her students had never seen blood before. She helped them learn to stay calm when everything around them was chaos. Danny trained pilots. He showed them how to fly fast and take risks. He taught them maneuvers that their instructors said were impossible, then proved that impossible was just another word for untested. Weeks went by. Then months. The Volanti soldiers got better. They started to move differently, to think differently. They stopped being victims and started being warriors. Then the test came. 3 Vrikari warships appeared at the edge of the system. They were scouts sent to check on Dominion defenses. Standard procedure was to run away and call for help. Instead, 12 Dominion fighters launched to meet them. Danny flew in the lead position. His voice was calm as he gave orders over the radio. Stay in formation until I give the signal. They'll come straight at us because that's what they always do. We're going to make them regret it. The Ringery ships attacked exactly as Danny predicted. They flew in a tight group, their weapons blazing. The Dominion fighters scattered. They came at the enemy from different angles, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. They worked together, covering each other, drawing fire away from damaged ships. 17 minutes later, 2 Vrakari warships were destroyed. The third was badly damaged and trying to escape. 4 Dominion fighters had been lost. 3 more were damaged, but could be repaired. It was the first time the Dominion had won a battle against the Vrakari in over 10 years. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. For species who had known nothing but defeat, the footage of burning Vrakari ships was like a miracle. Within weeks, requests for human help began arriving from dozens of worlds. The war was far from over, but for the first time in 40 years, there was hope. Lucy watched the celebration on Station Valora from a quiet corner. Corvith found her there and stood beside her. "You've given us something we lost a long time ago," he said. "The belief that we can win." Lucy shook her head. "We gave you training and tactics. You're the ones who did the fighting. Your pilots flew those ships. Your soldiers are learning to stand their ground." She turned to face him. "We can help you, Ambassador. But in the end, you're going to have to save yourselves." Corvith thought about that for a moment. Then he nodded. "Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all." News of the victory at Valora traveled fast. Within weeks, ships from a dozen different worlds arrived at the station. Everyone wanted help from the humans. The Korath came first. They were large beings covered in thick hide, with claws on their hands and sharp teeth in their mouths. They were the main fighting force of the Dominion, but they had been losing battles for decades. The Silith came next. They were water beings from a planet covered in oceans. They wanted to know how to defend their underwater cities. The Mendra came after them. They were small creatures who were very good at building things. They wanted to learn how humans made weapons. Lucy found herself in meetings from morning until night. Her tiny crew could not help everyone. They needed more humans. She sent a message to Earth. She explained everything she had learned and asked for volunteers. The response took months to arrive, but when it came, it was better than she had hoped. The colony ship Endeavor dropped out of faster-than-light travel, carrying 3,000 people. There were soldiers and teachers and doctors and engineers. There were factory workers and scientists and farmers. They had all heard about the Dominion's war and wanted to help. Among them was a man named Kevin Porter. He was 53 years old, with gray in his hair and a slight limp in his walk. He had been a soldier once, long ago. Now he taught history at a small school in Ohio. But when he heard about the Vrakari, he knew he had to do something. "I spent 15 years teaching kids about old wars," he told Lucy when they first met. "Time to be part of something that matters." Kevin was assigned to work with the Korath. Unlike the fragile Volanti, the Korath were built for fighting. They were strong and tough and hard to kill. What they lacked was creativity. Kevin watched them train for a week before he said anything. He saw how they formed straight lines and marched toward the enemy. He saw how they did the same thing every time, over and over again. "You fight like robots," he told a group of Korath officers. "You form lines. You advance. You attack. Every single time." The Vrakari have probably watched 1,000 recordings of how you fight. They know exactly what you're going to do. The Korath commander was a scarred veteran named Thawne. He did not like being criticized by a soft little human. "We fight with honor," Thawne growled. "We face our enemies directly." "Honor is nice," Kevin said. "Winning is better." He pulled up a display showing an old battle from Earth history. "This is the Battle of Canny. It happened over 2,000 years ago on my planet. One army was bigger and stronger and had never lost a war. They got destroyed because their enemy refused to play by the rules. He showed the Korath what had happened, how the smaller army had pretended to retreat, how the bigger army had chased them, how the trap had closed around them. "The Wreckery think they know how to beat you," Kevin said. "Prove them wrong." Over the following months, Kevin changed how the Korath fought. He taught them about ambush and traps. He taught them to retreat when they had to and attack when the enemy did not expect it. He taught them that there was no such thing as cheating in a fight for survival. Some of the older commanders refused to listen. They called the new tactics dishonorable. Those who listened started winning on a colony world called Verdaxis. 800 Korath soldiers held a defensive position against 3,000 Wreckery attackers. They used everything Kevin had taught them: hidden explosives, false retreats, surprise counterattacks. They held for 9 days. When reinforcements finally arrived, the Korath had lost 47 soldiers. The Wreckery had lost over 1,000. It was the kind of victory that had been impossible a year ago. Back on Station Valora, Grace Kim faced different problems. The wounded kept coming. There were too many of them and not enough doctors. Grace worked 18-hour days. She forgot what day it was. She forgot when she had last slept properly, but she kept going. Every life she saved was one more person who might make it home to their family. Siri, the young Valanthi scientist, became her assistant. The same Siri who had been too scared to approach the humans a year ago now performed surgeries that her teachers would have said were impossible. One night, after a particularly bad shift, Siri asked Grace a question. "How do you keep going? Your species faces death all the time. You lose people you care about, but you never stop. How?" Grace thought about it while she cleaned her tools. "We grieve. We remember the ones we lost. And then we keep working, because stopping won't bring them back." She set down the last tool and looked at Siri. "On Earth, we have a word called triage. It means that when you can't save everyone, you save who you can. It sounds cold, but it's actually the opposite. It means every life is important enough to make the hard choices." Siri was quiet for a while. "Your world sounds terrifying." "It is, but it's also beautiful." Grace smiled, the first real smile she had managed in days. Sunsets that fill the whole sky with color. Oceans so big you can't see the end. Forests and mountains and deserts. Life everywhere, fighting to survive. She paused. "That's what the Wreckery don't understand. They think emotions make you weak. But emotions are why we fight. They're why we don't give up." The war continued to shift. The Wreckery were smart. They noticed that things were changing. They developed new tactics to counter what the humans were teaching. For a while, the advantage began to slip away, but the humans adapted too. Every time the Wreckery tried something new, the humans found a way to beat it. It became a contest of creativity, and creativity was something the Wreckery had given up when they removed their emotions. 1 year after the first battle at Valora, the front lines had stopped moving for the first time in 40 years. The Wreckery advance had been halted. Some lost planets had been taken back. It was not victory yet, but it was no longer defeat. Then the bad news came. A listening post on the edge of known space detected something. A massive energy signature moving through unexplored territory. It was heading straight for a system that the Dominion had no ships defending. The Sol System, Earth. The Wreckery had decided to attack humanity at its source. Lucy received the news in the middle of a meeting. Her face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. "How long do we have?" 6 months, the messenger said. "Maybe less." Lucy nodded slowly. Then she started giving orders. There was a lot to do and not much time to do it. The war was coming home. The Wreckery Armada was the largest fleet they had ever assembled. Over 200 warships, including 17 of their giant dreadnoughts. These massive vessels had never been defeated in battle. Each one could destroy a planet. They were coming for Earth. Lucy sent messages to every human ship in the galaxy. Come home. Bring whatever allies you can. This is the fight that will decide everything. She sent messages to Earth as well. Prepare for war. Build defenses. Get ready for the worst. Earth had not been sitting idle during the past year. New shipyards floated in orbit, building vessels that combined human engineering with Dominion technology. A network of weapon platforms surrounded the planet. Underground shelters had been dug for civilians, but everyone knew it was not enough. The Vrikari had too many ships. The Dominion Council held an emergency meeting to decide what to do. Many argued that they should not help Earth. Humans were newcomers. They were not official members of the Dominion. The Allied fleet was needed to defend Dominion territory. Ambassador Corvus spoke last. 1 year ago, 5 humans came to Station Valora. They were strangers. They owed us nothing. His soft voice filled the chamber. When we asked for help, they gave it. They trained our soldiers. They treated our wounded. They died beside our people on a dozen worlds. He looked around at the assembled delegates. Now, their homeworld is in danger. If we abandon them, we abandon everything they taught us about courage and sacrifice. We become what we were before they came. A civilization waiting to die. He straightened to his full height. I am going to Earth. Anyone who wants to join me is welcome. The vote passed. The Dominion would fight. Ships began arriving in the Sol system. Korath warships with their heavy armor. The Lanthi medical frigates ready to treat the wounded. Silith carriers that had been modified for space combat. Species that have been enemies for generations now flew together. Kevin Porter returned to Earth on a Korath transport. He landed at a military base in Colorado, the same place where he had trained as a young soldier 30 years ago. The mountains looked the same as they always had. It seemed strange that Earth could still be so beautiful while preparing for possible destruction. Kevin was put in charge of ground defense. If the Vrikari managed to land troops, he would lead the forces that fought them. He hoped it would not come to that. The defense planning meetings included generals from every country on Earth alongside Dominion commanders. Old arguments and rivalries were set aside. There was only one enemy now. The Vrikari will expect us to protect our cities, Kevin explained during one briefing. Every other species they've fought has done that. Instead, we're going to spread out. Small groups, mobile, able to hit hard and disappear. We'll make them fight for every piece of ground. 2 weeks before the enemy fleet was scheduled to arrive, something unexpected happened. A single Vrikari ship entered the system under a white flag. It was not a warship, but a diplomatic vessel. It carried a message. The Vrikari High Command wanted to talk. Lucy took the meeting aboard a neutral ship. Corvith came with her, along with Marcus Cole and a security team. The Vrikari ambassador was tall and thin, with cold eyes that showed no emotion. He spoke through a translation device. You are the humans, the Deathworlders. We have studied you. We've studied you too, Lucy replied. What do you want? To offer you a choice. A holographic image of Earth appeared. Your world is impressive. High gravity, extreme weather, plentiful resources. It would make a valuable addition to our territory. We're not interested in being conquered. Not conquered. Incorporated. The ambassador spoke without any expression. Your species has shown qualities we find useful. Adaptability, creativity, physical strength. Join us willingly and your people will be preserved. Your genetics will be used to improve future Vrikari. Your planet will become a productive colony. Lucy kept her face calm. And if we refuse? Then we take what we want by force. Your species will be reduced to a controlled population and bred for useful traits. Your world will be stripped of resources and left empty." The ambassador paused. "This outcome is less efficient for both sides. We prefer cooperation." Marcus Cole's hand moved toward his weapon. Corvus touched his arm to stop him. Lucy was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up. "Let me make sure I understand. You're offering us the chance to surrender peacefully in exchange for being treated like animals instead of being killed. Is that right?" "Essentially, yes." "Then here is my counteroffer." Lucy's eyes locked onto the ambassadors. "Leave. Now. Take your fleet and go home. Never come back to this system. If you do, we will destroy you. Not just your ships. Not just your soldiers. Everything. Every Vakari world. Every station. Every last one of you." The ambassador's expression did not change. "That is not a realistic threat. Your forces are not sufficient. Maybe not. But you've already learned that we don't fight the way you expect. You've seen what happens when you underestimate us." Lucy leaned forward. "Here's what you don't know. Humans have been preparing for extinction threats since, before we had words for them. Asteroids, volcanoes, diseases, nuclear weapons. We've spent our whole history learning how to survive things that should have killed us." She straightened up again. "This is Earth. We were born here. Every human who ever lived fought to survive on this planet. And now you want to take it from us." A cold smile crossed her face. "Come and try." The ambassador stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and left without another word. The negotiations were over. Lucy returned to the command ship and began final preparations. The fleet was as ready as it would ever be. The planet's defenses were online. Everyone knew their jobs. All that was left was to wait. Kevin Porter stood on a hillside in Colorado, watching the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. Birds flew overhead, not knowing or caring about the danger that was coming. An old Korath soldier named Tharn found him there. "It is beautiful," Tharn said, looking at the sunset. "I understand now why your people fight so hard for this world." Kevin nodded. "This is just one small part of it. There are oceans and forests and deserts and ice fields. Cities full of art and music. Villages where nothing has changed for 1,000 years." He paused. "It took us a long time to appreciate what we had. We almost destroyed it ourselves more than once. But you did not. No. We figured out how to live together. Eventually." Kevin turned to face the alien warrior. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. When the Dominion asked for help, the humans who came were volunteers. Every single one. They left their homes and their families because they believed it was the right thing to do." Tharn was quiet for a moment. "Your people are strange, Kevin Porter. You come from a world that should have killed you. You help strangers you have no obligation to help. You face impossible odds and refuse to surrender." "We're stubborn," Kevin said. "It's one of our best qualities." Above them, the first stars were beginning to appear. Somewhere out there, the Vakari fleet was getting closer. Tomorrow would decide everything. The Vakari fleet came out of faster than light travel beyond the orbit of Mars. 237 warships spread across the darkness of space, blocking out the stars behind them. Against them stood 73 human ships and 41 Dominion vessels. They were outnumbered almost 2-1. They were outgunned. Everyone knew it. Commander Lucy Shaw stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity. Around her, officers from 6 different species worked side by side. Screens showed tactical data and communication channels. Lucy opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All units, this is Shaw. You know what we're facing. You know the odds." Her voice was steady and calm. "None of that matters now. What matters is that we stand together. Whatever happens today, the galaxy will remember that when darkness came for us, we did not run. We did not surrender. We fought. The battle began just before dawn, Earth time. The Valkyrie advanced in their usual formation. The giant dreadnoughts moved at the center, surrounded by smaller escort ships. Their weapons powered up, glowing with deadly energy. The human fleet did not try to meet them head-on. Instead, they broke into small groups that attacked from different angles. They struck fast and pulled back before the enemy could return fire. Danny Vance led one squadron, his fighter moving through the chaos with movements that seemed impossible. He had trained hundreds of pilots over the past year, but today he flew alone. "Come on," he muttered to himself as he dodged enemy fire. "Let's see what you've got." He dove into a group of Valkyrie escorts, weapons blazing. 2 enemy ships exploded. A third spun away with damaged engines. Danny was already gone, racing toward his next target. All across the battlefield, similar fights were happening. The human pilots and their Dominion allies were faster and more unpredictable. The Valkyrie kept their formations, unable to adapt to the chaos, but the dreadnoughts kept coming. They absorbed damage that would have destroyed smaller ships. Their massive weapons picked off defenders one by one. The Korath carrier Vengeance took a direct hit. Fire spread through its corridors. The hull began to break apart. Commander Thun ordered his crew to abandon ship. He stayed at the controls himself, turning his dying vessel toward the nearest dreadnought. The collision registered on sensors across the entire system. When the debris cleared, the dreadnought was badly damaged, its forward weapons destroyed. For the Dominion, Thun's voice crackled over the radio. For Earth, his sacrifice opened a gap in the enemy formation. Lucy saw it immediately. "All units, concentrate fire on Sector 7. Everything we have, now." The entire fleet's weapons focused on a single point. The barrage overwhelmed the Valkyrie ships in that area. 3 destroyers disappeared in balls of flame. A dreadnought's shields collapsed. Seconds later, the huge vessel broke apart. The Valkyrie shifted to close the gap. But the damage was done. For the first time in the battle, they were reacting to the defenders instead of controlling the fight. Hours passed. Ships were lost on both sides. Debris fields grew in the empty space between the planets, and then something strange started happening. The smaller Valkyrie ships began pulling back. Not all of them. The dreadnoughts stayed in position, but the destroyers and cruisers that made up most of their fleet were withdrawing. "They're retreating," Danny reported. His voice was full of disbelief. "I'm seeing withdrawal across the board." Lucy watched her tactical display. The Valkyrie never retreated. It wasn't in their nature. Something had changed. The answer came from Earth's surface. Kevin Porter had been watching the battle from his command post. Now he was staring at a report that had just arrived. "Commander Shaw, you need to see this." He sent her the data. Lucy read it and smiled for the first time in hours. During the battle, while everyone was focused on the fighting, a small team of human operatives had been running a different mission. Using captured Valkyrie technology, they had broken into the enemy's command network. The virus they uploaded didn't destroy anything. It did something far worse. It restored emotional capacity to every Valkyrie connected to the system. For the first time in 40 years, the Valkyrie soldiers could feel. They felt fear. They felt horror at what they had become and what they had done. They felt grief for the billions of lives their people had destroyed. Many of them simply shut down. Their enhanced brains couldn't handle the flood of emotions. Others began fighting each other as old arguments came rushing back. A few started broadcasting surrender signals. The dreadnoughts held out longest. Their crews were the most heavily modified, the most loyal to the Valkyries. But even they began to waver as chaos spread through their fleet. Lucy made a decision. "All units, cease fire. She switched to an open channel that the enemy could hear. "This is Commander Lucy Shaw of the United Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is falling apart. Your soldiers are feeling emotions for the first time in decades. Many of them are probably terrified. They should be." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But we're not monsters. We don't want to destroy you. We want to help you find what you lost. The ability to feel, to connect with others, to be more than machines in living bodies. If you surrender, we'll help you. We'll give you medical treatment. We'll help you rebuild your society." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the surviving Vakari ships began transmitting surrender codes. The battle for Earth was over. 1 year later, Lucy Shaw stood in a memorial garden on Station Valora. The walls were covered with names of those who had died in the war. Names in dozens of different scripts from a dozen different species. Tharn's name was there, along with his crew. So were the names of thousands of others who had given everything. Corvith found her there. He moved slowly now. Age was catching up with him. "The Vakari rehabilitation program is working," he reported. "Most of them are recovering, learning to feel again, learning to be the species they were before the enhancement." "Good." Lucy kept looking at the names on the wall. "What about the rest? Some may never recover. The changes went too deep." Corvith paused. "But we're trying. That's what humans taught us. You keep trying, even when success isn't guaranteed." Lucy nodded. She reached out and touched a section of the wall where human names were written alongside alien ones. "We lost a lot of good people. Yes, but because of their sacrifice, billions more will live." Corvith stood beside her. "When we first encountered humans, we called your world a death planet. We thought nothing good could come from such a harsh place. We were wrong." He turned to face her. "You are not Deathworlders, Commander Shaw. You are Life-worlders. Perhaps the most alive species any of us have ever met. You take broken things and fix them. You face impossible situations and find ways through. You look at a galaxy that gave up hope and refused to accept its surrender." Lucy didn't have words to respond. She just stood beside her friend, looking at the names of those they had lost, thinking about everyone they had saved. In the end, that was what humanity had always done: survived, adapted, found hope in the darkest places. And when the darkness came for them, they had not faced it alone. Somewhere beyond the station, ships from 100 different worlds traveled the space lanes together. Species that had never trusted each other now worked side by side. A galaxy that had been waiting to die was learning to live again. It would take years, maybe generations. But the war was over, and humanity would be there to help build whatever came next.